Hi, Rae.
Hi, Andy.
It is the start of the summer travel season, and that means that today we are going to talk about airports.
I am so excited. I can't even tell you.
I am both excited and also, full disclosure, airports are the number one topic of my anxiety dreams. So my memories and thoughts about airports are mixed at best. Airports are the topic of like 60% of my anxiety dreams. The rest are classroom anxiety dreams. I know you empathize with that one.
That one is probably 70% of mine.
But airports, I don't know what it is, but historically I've had not a terrible time at airports. A couple times I've had some bad experiences, but something about airports just really stresses me out. But by that same token, there's something really exciting about airports, something very, sci-fi, otherworldly about them that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly.
I think most of my thoughts about airports are positive ones. In my experience that are bad, it's not the airport's fault. We'll just leave it at that.
I mean, it's always people's fault. Is that people are terrible. That's really the problem.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think of myself in general as a good traveler, but that's just not true at airports. I feel like it raises my blood pressure by a solid 15 points by just being there. I just feel like everything about airports freaks me out, and I can't explain it.
So the joy of air travel, the miracle of air travel is not what you're thinking about when you're there?
Not real. And like the most pathetic thing about all this is, number one, I'm not scared about crashing in an airplane.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, those are legit fears for some people, but like, no. I'm not scared of crashing. I just despise the process of air travel. And I love every other kind of travel more. Like I love driving. I love road trips. I love the train. I mean, the train is just my ideal form of travel. I have not traveled very much by boat, but I've certainly liked that too. I will tolerate a bus. I hate airplanes. And I have no reason to, because again, very largely I've had good experiences on airplanes, and mostly the downside has been, delays. But bad memories, I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. I think for me, airports they're just still kind of magical places, right? I mean, the airplane itself, maybe not so magical, right?
Okay, yeah.
But the portal to get there is exciting. I think I spent, probably because I spent a lot more time as a child actually picking my dad up from airport or seeing him off at an airport instead of actually traveling myself, that to me they are kind of this sort of exciting magical place, but the middle seat not so much on an airplane.
Agreed. And I mean, this is where I just sound like the most snooty of snooty people. Like I've flown a lot since I was a kid, and I just traveling with. I don't want to throw my family under the bus, but traveling with my family was just really hard. I feel like my mom always lost her passport, like regardless of where we were. Anyway, I'm saying this, but that's actually way oversimplifying how I feel about airports, because they are places of transition. And yes, on the one hand, they make me very anxious, and I am very often quite anxious when I'm at airports, but I still feel that sense of awe too. And when I was studying for today's podcast episode, I really started thinking about those magical moments in my childhood that, and adulthood as well, of, seeing an airport and feeling that, that excitement. What I realized, though, is that in a lot of ways, my excitement had little to do with the architecture of the buildings. So, like, the pieces that immediately jump out to me are the flap boards, the Solari boards, of the changing of the letters in those clicky clacky boards. So they're called Solari boards. I found that out doing research for today. But yeah, those clicky clacky letter boards that were very common when we were young and are now entirely gone.
Right. Yeah, I guess they are.
But you didn't have to check the board all the time, because you would wait for that.
The sound. Like it sounded almost like a waterfall. Mm-hmm. And then you'd be like, oh, well, there's an update. Let's check. Well, I mean, they also had those in big train stations too.
They did. Yeah. Yeah. When they got rid of that in Penn Station, I was very sad. It was like the last good thing about Penn Station. But I'm thinking of other things that I really love, again, that have nothing to do with, or less to do with, architecture. I was thinking of like moments in architecture in airports that really struck out to me. And one that really I remember very distinctly is walking out of the airplane in Honolulu at the Honolulu airport. This was during my honeymoon because I'm basic. So we went to Hawaii, and I'm not sorry. It was amazing. And I just remember you're in the airport still. So you haven't left the airport. You're still in the airport. But you get off the airplane, and then most of the airport is open air. It smells good.
Yeah. Yep.
And I just vividly remember that you like walk out from like being in a tin can for 12 hours, and you're like, oh, wow. And immediately you're just relaxed. You can hear the birds. It smells nice. It's like that warm, moist air. And you're just like, I'm on vacation. And it was like an immediate, intense relief. But then I looked for photos of the Honolulu airport. It's not exciting. I think it's very cool to experience it, but it just looks like a big concrete box. Like it's not all that impressive from the outside at all.
Well, so as I was talking actually with my partner Pete about this, Print Jazz Pete, about airports that made impressions on the two of us, because a lot of our travel has been together. We were both kind of listing the outdoor airports, right? The open air, at least partially open air. And so, listeners, we completed our 50 states last year by going to Hawaii. So, yay! That was our very first trip to Hawaii. And after many delays and many challenges and everything else, we finally got there and we landed in Kona. And Kona has an open air airport. And it had one of my all-time favorite things in airline travel, which is there's no jetway.
Yeah.
So the plane lands and then they pull up one of those set of stairs and you get to walk on the tarmac. And somehow I just adore that. There's like this procession of it that makes it feel so much more exciting. And then the airport at Kona is also this set of buildings that's just in a cluster, and they have kind of like a double canted roof that looks very traditional. It's shingled, but the form of it looks very traditional. So I can show you, and you can describe it.
Yeah, so it looks like traditional Hawaiian housing, right? So it's got that like double-hipped roof. So think of, this is going to sound like an insult, and please understand, I absolutely don't mean this as an insult. It looks like Pizza Hut roofs.
Yeah,
right.
It does,
It like it's steeper, but it has that same kind of double shape, except it's just regular shingled. And it looks, honestly, it looks like a mall is what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like an airport at all. It looks very friendly, and like you could just hang out there and read a book and enjoy the sunset and listen to some ukulele music, and it looks lovely.
That was exactly how it was. And in waiting for our flight out of there, it was the same way. Like, there's just these lines of chairs and you're just kind of hanging out and you feel the breeze and you can hear planes coming in, and it's a whole sensory experience. It was fantastic.
So speaking of incredible experience, I just had an incredible airport experience last year, 2 years ago. It was on New Year's Day, too.
Oh, wow.
So we were flying out of Christchurch in New England. I sound so ridiculous. Okay, my in-laws live in New Zealand, so they kindly invited us to visit in New Zealand, which we did. It was amazing. So we flew all over New Zealand because it's 2 islands, so you kind of don't have a choice. So on New Year's Day, we flew from Christchurch to Taupo, I believe. But anyway, this is the photo of us getting on the airplane in Christchurch.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Yep. There you go. You get to walk on the tarmac. There's something so exciting. And the propellers, it's got propellers.
So it's a propeller plane. You're walking on the tarmac. Now, the thing is, this was such a absolute, what's the word I'm looking for? Step back in time. I mean, it's both really modern. Like Air New Zealand is a fantastic airline. They have all the modern amenities and all that. But Rae, there was no security at all to get on this airplane.
That's so amazing.
Like they had a security setup, but like, I don't know if it was an accident. I don't want to like call attention to it, you know, because it's like, I'm not going to be that guy who's like, oh,
Yeah.
we all have to go through the metal detector. But like, no, they called us and we just went right on the airplane. I don't think they looked at our IDs. I don't think they looked at nothing. They just were like, yep, it's New Year's Day. Kia ora, welcome on board. And it was like, this reminded me of air travel when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, so we're both children of the 70s, right?
Yes.
Right. So, you know, I did fly as a child. And when I did, I flew alone very early from like the mid 80s. And when I did, my parents would take me to the gate. And then stewardess at the time would let me into the, you know, and put me in my seat for the unoccupied minor or unaccompanied minor. Yeah. And so as an unaccompanied minor, I'd go and sit in my seat and I'd get my, you know, colored pencils or whatever. And then I'd get off the plane last and they would escort me through passport control and then they'd leave me. I would just finish and meet up with whatever adults afterwards. I would just be hanging out in the airport by myself, which, dear listeners, I don't think as a like 7, 8, 9-year-old you could do that anymore. I'm pretty sure that's just a hard no now. But back in the day, you know, there was no check for your ID or anything like that. Certainly not until you got on the airplane, if at all. So it was a very different era. And it leads me actually to the other very early memory of a place that I really liked, which is so, again, it has nothing or very little to do with architecture, although it is design. It is Logan Airport. Are you familiar with Logan Airport at all?
Not particularly, no.
So when I was a kid, my parents wanted me to learn English, so they would put me on a plane and I'd go, again, I sound like the most snooty person on earth, and that's fair. Very privileged, no question. Anyway, here I am, French kid. My English is so-so back then. And get on the airplane and then get off the airplane after 8 hours or whatever. And then in Logan, there was this kinetic art piece called Exercise in Frugality by an artist named George Rhodes. And I'm going to pull this up so that you can see it because, again, it's a kinetic art piece. And I remember because I would arrive at a certain time, and then the other campers who were coming from the eastern seaboard somewhere, they were arriving at a different time of day. So I would often be in Logan for a while by myself.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
So it's this huge kinetic art piece. It's behind glass, but it's super cool looking, and it's got these marbles that are just running, and it makes a lot of sound, but I don't want to take over the podcast here. So we'll have the full kinetic sculpture video showing and with the full sound on our website and on social media, maybe if we can.
Yeah.
But it is super duper cool. And I mean, I love marble runs anyway, but like this is just a full kinetic sculpture. You can just look at it for hours and just stay busy. And this is one of my favorite memories at an airport ever is Logan Airport and this kinetic sculpture.
I could see why. This is really spectacular. I mean, it's like a Rube Goldberg machine, right?
It is.
It's like, you know, everything is spinning and there are little cups and...
In fact, there is a second sculpture by the same artist also in Logan called Goldberg something. So I'm assuming it's another reference to Rube Goldberg, which of course is like the patron saint of all things that I love, honestly. And this always made me think of the artist Juan Miro as well. Like there's something very abstract and colorful and very cool about it. I remember this, and honestly, were it not for the internet today, I'd probably have terrible trouble finding it because I have not been to Logan recently, but there it is.
Very cool. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the history of airports.
Yep, let's do it.
All right.
So the earliest airports. Actually, before we talk about the earliest airports, can we just do a little side thing about dirigibles?
Oh, yeah.
So dirigibles were not popular for very long because, you know, the Hindenburg.
Yeah, good reason.
Good reason. But for a very short period of time there, they were a maybe realistic way to travel. It's certainly more comfortable than on an airplane, although, again, deadly. But what's really interesting about dirigibles is that you had to moor them And actually, you didn't want them to be on the ground if you could avoid it. You wanted them to stay aloft. And so some of these airships had like a waiting room on the top of buildings. I know of one for sure, which is the one on the top of the Superman building in Providence, Rhode Island, which had a like mooring station for the airship, Zeppelin. And it looks like a Greyhound stop. It's like this little, it looks like nothing, like a diner put on top of this building. It's got windows, but imagine like a container, like from a container ship, just plopped on the building. And then you just have the mooring for the airship. And the reason I mention this is it was just kind of purely utilitarian. It was like, it's not like you're seeing it really because it's at the top of the building anyway. It's just a waiting room. And I think that early airports were very similar. It was like, we've got these airplanes, they're brand new. They tend to blow up, so let's keep them outside. We have hangars. Hangars have to be very big because, the wings don't fold or anything. So the hangars are going to be these huge metal structures. They're going to be uninsulated. They're going to be very hot in summer, very cold in winter, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to be out in these fields where you can take off and land. And that's where the airplanes are going to be, like out in the field, maybe a hangar, maybe not. And that's pretty much it. And that's like the early, the first 20 years of airports?
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, the first airport in the world, based on my research, and no bias here, was in College Park, Maryland.
And there is an excellent air museum there.
Yeah, there is.
So, dear listeners, and they used to have a great restaurant there. Do they still have a great restaurant there?
You know what? I don't know. I've been there a number of times, but it was mostly for the exhibits. They could have a good restaurant too.
Okay. Well, back in the day, they had a good restaurant. Don't quote me on it today. But anyway, yes. So, wow, I didn't realize that was the earliest one.
Yeah. So they claim to be the earliest airport in the world, 1909.
Wow.
Yeah. And from what you say and from the images I have seen, it was a box and a hangar.
A box and a hangar and a field.
Yeah, it really wasn't that exciting. But I thought that was kind of interesting that of all the places, like I thought, Kitty Hawk or, all of these places where we think about sort of airships and...
Okay, but in Kitty Hawk, they flew for like 16 seconds or something.
Okay, fair. Yeah, but,
Don't come at me, please, listeners. I will be completely honest and say that airplane history is not my forte. I have been to the Air and Space Museum, but this is not what I'm good at. Yeah, so and I think the fact that they're called airports is not an accident, right?
Yeah.
Is that they were ports for airplanes. And so originally it was very kind of utilitarian, very industrial. It just did not have any other anything.
Well, so to kind of put this in context, this is not like everyday people were not going and taking a plane anywhere. So, in the first part of the 20th century, they were mostly functional. There are a lot of military planes. There are, they're starting to have airmail. There's, that kind of stuff, but they can't even go very far. So there's no need for the creature comforts, I think, that we need later once you're paying to travel, and you're waiting, and you're, and it's an expensive kind of way to travel. So people are expecting a certain level of comfort while they're there. So yeah, I think they worked great for what they were doing, but
yeah, there's just not a whole lot of anything. There's some Art Deco detailing here and there when there's anything, but again, it's very kind of industrial. And it's big, and so it's impressive because it's big and because the materials are all these space-age materials, but it's not really architecturally all that interesting. And it doesn't really become architecturally interesting until air flight democratizes at least a little bit in the post-war era, especially once we get jet engines. That's when, things are definitely going to change very drastically, very fast.
Yeah, so I would like to say I find some of the pre-World War II buildings pretty interesting. So I would love to kind of delve into a couple of those. All right, so my DC bias, National Airport. So National Airport is, I won't go into the whole history, but they needed an airport that was close to DC, and apparently Congress, surprisingly, had been fighting about it for 20 years, where to put it. And finally FDR said, we're putting it here, and done. one. So in 1938, they actually put down a cornerstone. And the original national airport, which listeners, some of you may know as Ronald Reagan National Airport.
We will never call it.
I only call it National Airport. It's the same place. It's in Virginia, just outside of D.C. So it's a 1938 building. So we're still in the middle of the Great Depression. There's like lots of stresses, but we need this place that is close to the Capitol. And so it's built in that style that we call stripped classicism, with a little bit of art moderne flair, right? I mean, they put as much flair as they can put into it. And when you read about it, it talks about having a colonnade kind of like Mount Vernon, which I think is maybe a bit of a stretch, but some people see that. But it has this curved entrance of these huge, big, square kind of pillars. It's a really elegant sweep, right? And then it has this classical rhythm to it. And I think for a building that is truly stripped down is one of the first that we're kind of going out there saying, no, actually, new design is important, and let's incorporate these new technologies and new ideas and be optimistic. I think it's really beautiful.
Completely agree. I will say, dear listeners, in case you don't know about National, and in case you've been there and you're thinking, wait, it looks newer than that. It's because, and we're going to see this is true of almost all the airports we're going to talk about today. They were built, rebuilt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So National Airport was, what we're talking about here is Terminal 1.
Correct.
There are two other terminals that are very modern. They were built in like the 90s, late 90s. They're great. And the whole system is fantastic because it's on the metro. That is one of my, if I can say, like the most important thing for me for airports is that they be connected to transit. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about that. But so Terminal 1 is the good one. Like to me, it's the one that like you're excited when you're there because it has that circular design. So, all right, this is very hard to explain audio and not in person, but dear listeners, there's fundamentally like a few different ways that you can set up airports, because the issue is airplanes are huge and they're not super mobile when they're on the ground. They're like a seabird on the ground. It's just not good at maneuvering. Okay, so you can either have a system where you take the passenger to the airplane through a number of means that are separated from the concourse. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to have just full access from the terminal to the concourse. And to do that, you kind of want it to be as circular shaped as possible so that all of the airplanes can kind of come in, imagine like an octopus, right? So that you can have access to a bunch of different planes all at once. And that's how Terminal 1 is built.
So to be fair, that's the addition. To
Terminal 1?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Huh.
Yes. So
tell me more.
What I'm talking about is actually, so this 1938 building is, it has this concave front to it. Here's a little image of it. I was trying to find a big one.
Aha.
So this was the historic waiting room, built in 1930, opens in 1940, I think it is, and it looks out onto the runways. And so this is when you were actually waiting there basically in the creature comforts until you had to go out to the hangar or out to the tarmac to get onto the plane. And so it has this wall of windows that faces out. At this point, it's really just kind of a pass-through and an event space, but this was the airport in the 1940s. The one you're talking about.
When was Terminal 1 added then?
So it was added in 1968.
Oh, well, that makes sense then.
Yes, and it's called the Satellite.
Oh, God, it's my favorite part of the airport.
Yes, I adore that part of the airport. It was built at a time when in a couple of different airports, and I didn't find out how many airports this happened, but in the end of the 60s in New York and also in D.C., they wanted individual airlines to build their own terminals.
Yeah.
So unsurprisingly, a little foreshadowing of my favorite terminal, this was built by TWA.
Yeah. All the good ones.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a mid-century modern sort of extravaganza. It's a round room. It's almost completely surrounded by glass. It has a bar restaurant in the center. Mm-hmm. And then each of the little kind of pieces of pie have a door out to a different airplane, right? And then above you is the best part, right? Like the ceiling, it's kind of this flattened disc space, and it's made out of concrete. So it's
and it's stuccoed white. Right. So like it feels super airy in there.
It does, yeah. And birds agree with you because every time I've been there, there've been birds buzzing around.
Always. They love it.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those spaces that makes you feel that the potential of the jet age, right? It's kind of democratizing and like more and more people are participating, but it's still this sort of luxury kind of thing, right? Like people aren't going every other weekend to visit grandma on an airplane, right? Like it's an event, and the building, I think, makes you feel like it's an event.
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely airports where this is the big argument between different airports, right? Is do you make the airport as functional as possible to move people as fast as possible? Or do you make the airport a destination in and of itself? And this is complicated by the fact that, of course, over the last, especially 30 years, things have changed drastically in air travel. In particular, the whole passport and especially security control, which basically was non-existent when we were kids and is now pretty extensive, so that now everything has to be available behind that curtain, if you will, so that, you know, you pass that segment and then you're in that area past all the control where you can kind of relax a little bit once you've seen where your gate is. I feel like that's non-negotiable. But then the question is, how do you make that work in a way that is practical, and especially today when some of these airports are moving just an absolute ton of people around all the time? How do you minimize moments of friction? And there's different airports that have done it differently. So I know Atlanta is the busiest airport in North America. It's okay. Meanwhile, there's airports like Newark, which is very old. Like, so the oldest part of Newark is from like the 1920s or something. And it's considered like the worst airport. Everything's always late there. It's a crappy design. And like anyone would tell you, it's actually a crappy design. It's not a good airport. I'll tell you what though, I like that airport because it's close to my mother-in-law's. So when we fly there, my mother-in-law can come pick us up. So, I mean, that's the reality of airport design too, is like, there's actual like objective good design and bad design. And then there's also like, hey, someone can pick you up at this one. Ooh, that's nice. Another one of my favorites by that definition is BWI.
Oh, I love BWI in terms of access. Yeah, absolutely.
BWI has the best parking garage.
Yeah, it does.
And I realize that's kind of dumb, but like it makes such a huge difference because, you know, even though you're going to have to take the bus from the parking garage to the terminal, I know exactly how long that's going to take. And I don't have to worry about it. And the garage is covered, which means I'm not going to get wet, which means I don't have to worry about any of it. Like I don't have to worry, where am I going to park the car? How long is it going to take me? What about, you know, carrying my luggage? Nope. I know exactly how it's going to work. And it has those amazing lights, right? I
love those. I don't know who invented those, but that is literally the best part.
It is the best invention. Dear listeners, you've seen these before. It's just that at every parking spot, they have a little sensor. And so if the parking spot is taken, there's a little red light. And if the parking spot is free, there's a green light.
And they also tell you how many on each level, right? So you're like, okay, I know I have to go up to the 4th floor because there's only like 3 spots.
Yeah, and I'm not fighting for those.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's great. It's a great little thing. And even though, again, the airport itself is fine. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. It's not that exciting, but it's a fine airport. But
it's not bad, though.
It's not. So let's talk about the true jewel airports, shall we? Because there are a few.
I need to go back and give Newark a little love. Can I do that?
Please. Give Newark as much love as you want. Like it is, as I said, I shockingly like that airport.
So Newark is, you are correct, actually. It was started in 1928 and inspired by Charles Lindbergh. They decide that they want to be like the airport for New York, even though they're in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And Newark Airport Building Number 1 opens in 1935 as New York City's like primary airport, like the best way to get to New York. And they have all these things about like how close you are to 42nd Street and stuff. But it's a spectacular space. So it's an Art Deco building with the most incredible terrazzo floor I think I've ever seen. And the reason that we still have it is because it was outdated pretty quickly, but it becomes the U.S. mail terminal for New York, right? So where all of the airmail and you know, every shipping goes through. And then I think it was in 2001, they move it and it becomes the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey offices and police. So it's here. Wow. Here are some images of it. And I I adore it. And I wish that I could
wow.
have that be my lobby as, you know, my entrance into the air age, because and the pictures don't do it justice. It has these WPA terrazzo, incredible floors. I mean, just like every color and incredible design.
It's incredible, like abstract geometry. And in case you don't know what terrazzo is.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
No,
Sorry.
no problem.
I just got too excited.
So terrazzo is a finished concrete. Concrete, by the way, and we will have, I'm sure, a whole episode about this in the future, Rae. I know, like your first love is concrete. So it has both cement and aggregate, right? Cement is the binder, and aggregate is the like pebbles, basically. And depending on the color you put in the cement itself, but also the color of the aggregate itself, right? So imagine you use quartz, let's say, then you're going to have terrazzo of different colors. So the way that you do it is you pour all this concrete with these expansion joints in between, and then you polish it. Basically, you take off the top of it and then polish it. And so it creates this extremely durable, beautiful surface that is my favorite. I mean, if I had all the money, I would terrazzo all the things. It's beautiful. It's great for like high volume places where lots of people walk on it, and it stays beautiful forever, and it's impervious to everything, and it's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, listeners, if you've been to a new airport or an airport that's been renovated in the past 20 years, so terrazzo kind of went out of style for a while, and then all of a sudden in the 21st century, everybody remembers how cool it is, and they start doing like all of these, you know, murals on the floor, basically. And a lot of new airports I've been to, like, you know, if they're near water, there's like a big river you can follow, or if they're known for their birds, they have these, you know, murals on the floor with that. And they're just so lovely, and they sparkle because of the different kind of things that they put in it. And I get very excited about terrazzo. And you're right, it's almost indestructible.
Yeah. So this building is absolutely gorgeous. If Newark looked like that, then I would love it even more. It no longer does. That's okay. It has some advantages. And there are some gorgeous airports out there.
Yeah.
Since the 1960s, airports have been designed and redesigned and redesigned. And some of them, as we'll see, were designed well. Some of them were designed less well, like Newark was never designed well. It is on transit, though, which is really nice.
Yeah.
I think one thing that sets apart for me the really well-designed airports, the ones that I think of and like love in my heart, is that they're all made of concrete. Like they're just concrete, steel, glass. They just lean into that very modern, brutalist materiality, and they're not trying to pretend like, oh, look, this is, you know, green architecture. Like, no, you're getting on an airplane. This is a wing. This is the future. This is science fiction. I personally really love that.
Yeah, I think for me, the airports that I find really attractive are the ones that were kind of designed as a whole. Like Newark suffers from this because, you know, it was really early, and honestly,
Absolutely.
National a little bit too, is like you just keep adding things and they don't take too much away. And so it's just this collection of things that some of them are cool and some of them aren't. And it gets to be hard to kind of figure out where you are. But the ones that they kind of have a huge plan and they plan for expansion. I think those to me are the ones that are the most attractive in terms of the large scale ones. Of course, you know, Kona was lovely.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of cute little, you know, if you're only flying out like, you know, a few airplanes a day, I don't think we're talking about the same thing here. We're talking about the big hubs. And in terms of the big hubs, you know, you go to, well, you don't go anymore, to the old TWA terminal at JFK, or you go to Dulles, or you go to LA. I mean, those are the big three to me. And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, this is spectacular. I would add, there's a modern one that I would say is pretty wonderful. Denver.
See, my problem with the Denver airport is that it's too far away.
It is.
I love the Denver airport itself. As you say, it is beautiful, but it suffers to me greatly by the fact that you have to drive for an hour to get there.
Well, it is on transit.
It is on transit. I've taken transit there, but it took like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know, to take the train there. It was a very pretty train ride, all the kind of blank because you're just in the Great Plains at that point. You're going away from the mountains, which is better for air travel. but as a result, for me, like that airport is less interesting and less fun because I'm like, oh, I have another hour, before you get to wherever you're going. And that's the opposite of Detroit, which the Detroit airport is so convenient. Or Midway in Chicago.
Oh, I love Midway.
Like
yes.
They're so great, and like I honestly don't think about their architecture at all. I'm just like, this is awesome. It's gonna take me 20 minutes to get to where I'm going, and like that feels just fantastic.
Yeah, Denver had one of those, actually. It had one of those, like, very close to downtown, really convenient, very functional kind of airports. And so when I was reading up on it, like, how did it get to be what it looks like, right? In 1989, they bought 54 acres, 24 miles outside of the city center. And they did it because that's where they could get the land, and it has this tiny little, like, right-of-way from the city center all the way out so that they could build the transit and stuff. But I think on some level, I like it because, yes, it's not your end point, but they really tried to think it through in terms of what is the future of air travel circa 1995.
And that's hard to do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so we can include Denver then in the pantheon of great airports.
Okay, let me just describe it to you, and listeners, you can decide whether you think this is cool or not, because I know it is inconvenient. However, the Denver airport is a series of large-scale fabric tents. And they kind of mirror the Rocky Mountains behind with the snow, but they're also supposed to be kind of evocative of Native American teepee structures on the plains. And you might like this. The structures use catenary steel cables like the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean,
and I forgot about that crazy blue horse sculpture.
Yes.
In front, which looks.
I'm not in love with that.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But
I prefer the blue bear inside Denver. Have you seen the blue bear?
Yeah, the blue bear is cool.
Anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
No, and that is not an aside. That is important. So one of the cool things about the Denver airport is they have a mandatory 1% of capital improvement budget for art. So they're always adding to the art collection there, which I find is kind of cool. I mean,
Absolutely.
like they have it figured out, right? They're like, it's not a huge percentage, but it means that it is always a changing place, and it's pretty lovely.
It is. You have me convinced. I hadn't thought of it. Also, whenever I've flown out of Denver, it's always been like in the evening or at night because overnight red eye flights back east and stuff like that. So it is a really beautiful airport. That's true. All right, I take it back.
Okay, thank you.
But it's still not my favorite.
Yeah, and it did have a really terrible sort of futuristic automated system for baggage, which they premiered and then was eventually replaced because they could never fix it. So now they use a manual system like everybody else. But I give them credit for saying like, hey, we can apply computers to this. We can make it better, right?
All right. Are we trying to do this chronologically for the other three or not?
Sure.
So there's LA. Mm-hmm. And for LA, we're only talking about one building in particular, I think, right? Which is what's the name of that building? It doesn't actually have the airport in it, but it's just the most recognizable thing. It looks like a alien landing or like a spider or like an alien concrete spider, but it's white. It's very cool looking.
It is not the airport, though.
I know, but it's like the gateway to the airport.
It is.
Right? So it's like the building that welcomes you to the airport. And it's the most recognizable, I think, from a distance. Like you see it and you're like, that's LA. That's LAX.
Yes. As a matter of fact, this is what I brought.
My God. It's so cool. Oh, wow. Is this for like a...
it's a charm bracelet.
It's a charm bracelet charm of this building, which is the... what's the name of it? Like, it's got a name. It's like the demonstration building or something like that.
It is. I was just looking up the name. It should be on the top of my tongue right now. But
it's called the theme building.
Yes, the theme. Okay. I was going to say the experience.
I'm about to say something about this building that I don't know if you know. So this building was finished in 1961, according to my research. Mm-hmm. Did you know that one of your favorite architects worked on this building?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yep.
Well, I had hoped that it would be something you didn't know. That's okay. That's okay. This charm is amazing. Would you like to tell our listeners about Paul Revere Williams?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so small aside, because he is one of my favorite architects ever, and I could talk about him forever. So Paul Revere Williams is an architect who's living in LA in early 20th century, and he is the first registered Black architect in California, not just in LA.
I thought in the entire United States.
He might have been. I know in California, definitely. He designed something like 800 buildings or something.
Lots of houses.
Hundreds of buildings.
Yeah.
He also was he was a modernist. So he was interested in designing like very stripped down, modern materials, open spaces, but things that integrated, the outside world. He had lots of high-end clients like in Palm Springs. So he did these like incredible like pools, outdoor pools with all of these mosaics. But then he was trying to push back against, there's kind of a middle class, like not love of modernist houses and flat roofs and that kind of thing. So he is actually trying to challenge that. And he writes two plan books for like small houses for tomorrow. And I can't remember the title of the other one, but they are spectacular kind of essays and like, see, you could like a modern house. Look at it. It's got a carport. It's got all of the spaces that you want. It's these, low maintenance materials, open spaces. It's super great because we're breaking from tradition, right? We don't have to have a peaked roof in order to have a house.
Yeah.
It can be wonderful. And so I adore him. His imagination is amazing. So he was on the team for the theme building, but one of the amazing buildings he did on his own with concrete, of course, was called La Concha, which was a hotel in Las Vegas that is supposed to look like a conch shell,
right.
And it does. It's just, yeah.
A couple other facts that our listeners might be excited about, because again, this was a man who was a Black architect in middle of the century during some really, really tough times. Yeah. That number one, he talked a lot about the irony that he was designing a lot of houses where he would not be allowed to have his house, be able to own a house. And also, and this struck me as both incredibly sad, but also incredibly impressive, is that he learned to draft upside down.
Oh, yes. I totally forgot about that. Oh, thank you. Yes.
So he learned to draft upside down because at the time, I guess his white clients did not feel comfortable sitting on the same side of a table with him. And so he had to learn to draft, in this ridiculous way to appease, ridiculous demands. But it makes him that much more impressive that he was just an incredible, incredible architect. And this building, he was part of a team, right? He was not working on his own, but that's true of a lot of architecture anyway.
Yeah.
But it's so cool. It looks so sci-fi, futuristic. Like this is the excitement of air travel, right?
Yeah.
This is that like, wow, look at that. It's the future, and that optimism and all of that all wrapped into one. And I just, again, being at airports is not always my favorite, but you see that LAX building and you're like, oh yeah, the future.
Yeah. It's basically like two big arches of concrete, and then what looks like hanging from the center, but is really up on a big post. It's kind of like a UFO, right?
Right.
And that's where the restaurant is. And so it's a round restaurant with, windows all the way around, looking through this like sort of suspension system.
Right.
It's amazing.
And that's what you think of when you think of LAX. Yeah. You don't think of the other buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
None of the other buildings are actually interesting.
They're fine. Yeah. It's just, again, there's a lot of added buildings over time, and they kind of work together and kind of don't.
Yeah.
All right, which brings us to the two masterpieces on the East Coast, which conveniently for us and for you listeners, if you're starting to get sick of this topic, we still have a lot more to talk about, but it were designed by the same architect. And this architect, Eero Saarinen, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
That's interesting. I always thought it was Saarinen, but I don't know.
So he is the son of Eliel Saarinen, who was a Finnish architect who moved his family to the U.S., to the Midwest, I think like when Eero was actually quite young. So he was born in Finland. He was raised a little bit in Finland, but I think most of his career, if not all of his career, was actually in the U.S. But so his father was an early modernist architect and has some really cool designs of his own. And then Eero designed, in particular, these two airports that are, to me, unsurpassed. I mean, they're
I agree.
the best, and I'm gonna give my love to Charles de Gaulle, to Terminal 1 of Charles de Gaulle in a bit, but like, you look at the TWA terminal, you look at Dulles, and you're like, oh, yeah, no, I get it. I get it. So which one are we talking? Which one was built first? I should probably know this.
They were almost at the same time,
Yeah.
but I do think that the TWA terminal comes first, and then Dulles.
Okay, so I think you should talk about the TWA terminal because dear listeners, I'm super jealous of Rae because Rae went and stayed at the TWA terminal last year, 2 years ago.
It's been a few years. It was 2022, actually.
Well, that's still awesome, though.
Yeah, it was so wonderful. It was with a group of people that I now serve on the board of. It's the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and they're roadside people, but transportation in general, and like all of the things that kind of come with road trips and exciting kind of moving around things. So they did an entire weekend trip, and ironically, this was right after the pandemic. So we didn't fly, we drove. So we saw all of the airports in the New York area, and we didn't actually fly into one. Other people did, but we did not.
Right. So the TWA terminal had been closed for quite a while. So I remember flying out of it way back when I was a kid, but it had been closed pretty much since TWA went out of business, I'm assuming.
Right. So I looked into this. So the TWA terminal opens in 1962, and TWA, the airline, is acquired in 2001-ish by American, and that's when they close it.
Okay.
And then it stays mothballed until 2019. And now, dear listeners, you can go visit it again, and you don't even have to fly.
This is one of my dream. So just to describe this airport, and you have it in your mind. You know what it looks like, even if you don't.
Yeah, you do.
So it is a concrete, glass, and steel building, and it is in the shape of an abstracted bird. It's got like wings and almost like a beak-like structure coming down by the front, by the entrance, and the wings are like splayed out, like they're about to flap, and like the whole thing is about to take off. And on the inside, it's all curves. This is the thing that I love about Saarinen work, is that like, yeah, it's ultra modern. And again, like, you could call it brutalism or not, depending on what you want to say, because it's finished concrete. It's not
Right.
unfinished. It's not raw concrete. It's smoothed, but it's these incredible, like, curved giant shapes that make you feel like you're kind of floating, and the carpets in that airport were all red, and all the seats and stuff were all red, and so it creates this kind of weirdly warm, like futuristic, but not oppressive, but like airy, but also organic. I don't know. It's very hard to describe, but it's absolutely gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's all of the concrete parts are white, and then there are various parts of it where it's tiled in those little white penny tiles, and it goes in the tradition of a lot of these kind of waiting rooms we talked about, like even going all the way back to that national airport, the first one. So it's got this huge glass wall, and the glass wall so that you can look out and watch the planes take off as you're waiting, and it has one of those, what did you call it? The ones that change, the boards that change?
Yeah, the Solari boards.
Yes. So it has a Solari board, but it's in like a parabolic shape.
Yeah.
So it fits in with the whole decor. And it's a spectacular sort of essay in what we thought the future would be like circa 1962. And this is really intentional, right? Because this is when, as I mentioned, the lots of the major airports are starting to say, like, we have all of these different kind of airliner companies coming in, and they have different kinds of ships, and they want to have control. So we're going to let them all do their own terminals. And TWA is by far the most, I would say, innovative in terms of they wanted it to be an experience from the time that you bought your ticket until you left the airport. They wanted it to be kind of branded, right? Like,
absolutely. I mean, it is an identity that, again, once you see it, you're like, oh, right, that.
Yeah.
And you're not going to mistake it for anything else. And because of that red, and the colors of TWA were white and red too, that, it is extremely recognizable. And that airport is beautiful. I don't know whether it's more beautiful than Dulles.
So I would
They're
argue
very different.
I would argue not, in part because it's not the whole airport.
Right.
So this is only one terminal at JFK as opposed to an entire airport like Dulles is. But just to kind of finish the whole story of why I was there and how I got to stay there. So in 2019, they started a major construction project. Part of the reason that it was mothballed in 2001 is it was too small for how airliners and how people needed to travel through these spaces, right? It became obsolete. But I think everybody knew it was too cool to just demolish, right? I mean, because really, it's an airport, it's prime real estate, and yet they allowed it to sit there for almost 2 decades. So I think even though people didn't recognize it, maybe outright. They knew they couldn't just get rid of it. So in 2019, they start plans to turn it into the lobby of a hotel. So they build a hotel behind it, and then that's like all of the public spaces are in what was the airline. And they really lean into the magic of air travel circa 1962 with the cocktails and the music and everything is like, you think it's going to be hokey and it's just so fantastic. It is just amazing. So.
I feel like that's the kind of thing where you want to go for a reception there or something like that. That is just so iconic and now timeless, right? Because it's both retro and future.
Yeah.
It's retro futuristic kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And I also, I traveled through it in the 1990s and it was a little, I would say even by then, a little down on its heels. So it was so great to see it, being loved.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I think this is one of the big issues with airports. And I don't want to end on a bummer, so I want to talk about Charles de Gaulle real quick. So in the case of Charles de Gaulle, it's one terminal. It's Terminal 1 that I really love. The rest of it's fine. It's big, and so it's got like a bunch of terminals, and a lot of them are fine. They're not super exciting. They are on transit, which I really love. But Charles de Gaulle was built a little bit later, 10 years later, in 1974, by Paul Andreu. He tried to design it like an octopus, kind of. Now, usually in most airports, and in this case, Charles de Gaulle was not built this way, which was not very smart, but in most airports, you're always going to depart from the second story, and you're going to arrive on the first story. And that's because, think about your luggage, right? Your luggage has to get onto the airplane. But then when it gets off the airplane, it's at ground level. So then it makes more sense to not have to bring it back up again. So, I mean, this is a lot of airport design is just keeping things as simple and organized as possible. This building, Charles de Gaulle 1, is a donut. It's like a 6-story tall donut made of concrete. And that doesn't sound super exciting, and it sounds very brutalistic, which it is. But as a child, I was completely mesmerized by it, and I'm still mesmerized to this day because joining the different levels of the concrete donut are these tubes that are fully tubes. Okay, so they're covered completely. They're like these little glass bubbles, and they're not escalators. They're rolling carpet, but they're not flat either. They're like on an angle to get you to a different story. It's science fiction. Like, I don't know, like as a kid, I was just completely mesmerized by it. And here I have a picture of my kid hanging out in a ballet pose, of course, wearing Crocs like a French child would never. But I don't know, there's something about this that I was always so excited to get to go on that little, it felt like a ride. Yeah. I don't know how else to say it. Like, it felt like a ride. And then to get to the airplanes, once you're like out of this part of that octopus, they have these tubes to get into the actual airplanes.
Oh, and that's very cool.
It feels a lot like, I'm trying to think of other airports that have this like idea that like you have to go underneath basically the concourse or whatever where the airplanes are going. And so it's again this finished concrete tube, and because you have to go up and down and stuff, and again there are these moving sidewalks, but they're not escalators, right? It just feels like organic and sci-fi. It feels like you're in a Kubrick movie. It feels like 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I think to me, one of the most futuristic things about this is going to sound really weird is like the form of it is square, but it has rounded corners because of the concrete. And so something about that just feels very like, futuristic. It also has texture in the concrete. So it's not these just kind of smooth, plain walls. It's that like, I guess if you have it on the ceiling, they call it popcorn.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it on the walls, but there's something about that also makes it feel, like you're moving through space.
Yeah. It just, I think as a child, I just saw this and was like the pretend play that I wanted to do of like being, an astronaut and, the future and all that, being a Jedi. I don't know. This allowed me to do that in a way that I think a lot of airports just don't. Like this airport, I think a lot of people look at it and they're like, it looks a little bit oppressive. It's very concrete forward. It's gray. It looks dilapidated a little bit. Like it's a bit post-apocalyptic. Okay. I'm not going to lie. But because it is so out of time now, it has this like ability to really take you to a different, like you feel like you're moving in time and space, and it's just very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of the outside of it, and what it makes me think of is a stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from the outside, I don't know that I would call it beautiful.
Yeah.
But from the inside, it just...
Yeah, it's spectacular.
Again, as a child, it just gave me that imagination thing. And considering how stressed I am when I travel, the fact that I could just imagine myself anyplace else was very helpful. But that brings us back to Dulles, which has its issues, okay? Like, we've all been stuck at Dulles. We've all been delayed, especially the travel there is just awful. Driving to Dulles is a nightmare. There is transit there now. There was not originally. But the actual building itself, it amazes me how effective it is, especially because it was built in the mid-'60s. And to this day, it feels absolutely airy, and it doesn't feel dated at all. Not to me, anyway.
I would agree with that. So maybe we should describe it for people who haven't seen it. So it is concrete and glass, like all of these that we've been talking about, but it has a drape to it. So it's a concave roof line where one side is taller than the other, and it looks like you've just kind of draped this fabric in between two glass walls, except that it's concrete.
To me, it looks like one single swooping wing.
Yeah.
So it definitely has that organic. I mean, it's large and it's abstract, but it definitely has that almost organic feel to it. What's super impressive about it too is when it was designed, this is like pre-computers, right? All of these buildings that we're talking about were built in the 60s. Well, especially the two Serena buildings, the TWA terminal and Dulles. They're from the 60s. There was no computer assistance to make all of these crazy curves, and so they're making these out of like rebar by hand. And then poured concrete. Like they had to basically model it and model it and model it again to make sure that it wouldn't fall down.
Yeah. I can't imagine the contractors, like, what they must have thought of those construction documents. Like, really? Are you kidding me?
Because everything's curved in Dulles. Like everything is just this beautiful curve, and again, it's so swooping and large, and like as a result, when you're in that main terminal building, it doesn't feel oppressive at all. Yeah,
what I really notice is the elegance of it.
Yeah.
Like it's just this wide open space, but doesn't feel like you're in a football field. It kind of is embracing you, but also sort of moving you through space in a way that is gentle, but also like, insistent. Like you're not going to stay here, right? Like you just got to get your tickets and move on. But it also is kind of awe-inspiring. And then of course it has fantastic typography, right? So it has this 1960s, all of the lettering, like everything goes together as a whole. So it's opened in 1962. It is designed to expand. I think that's one of the things that gets me about the future, right? Like he knew when he was designing it that air travel was going to grow, that particular airport was going to need to grow. And so it was modular in a way that they could expand it. So they do in 1996. So they made it bigger in order to continue to grow with the air travel industry, which is pretty amazing.
Do you want to take a minute to talk about the people movers?
You mean the mobile lounges, which
Mobile lounges, sure.
I always call them space buggies because they remind me of like the buggies on the moon.
So they're buses. They'll call them buses, but they're basically buses that are on scissor lifts, so that when you get to the airplane, you can like get off directly into this people mover mobile lounge bus on a scissor lift, which will then take you to the terminal and let you out. And I mean, these exist in a bunch of different airports now.
Yeah.
This is not unique to Dulles, although I think Dulles might have been the first place
I
they
think
had
they
them.
designed it for Dulles, and then other places then used that idea.
To be completely honest with you, I hate those because I always feel car sick in them.
Oh.
And they're common. They're common in France too.
Yeah.
They're common in all sorts of places. And every time I've been on one of those, it's just like, I don't know what it is about them, but I feel very nauseous in them. And so I don't like them. But they're very practical-ish when they don't get in car crashes.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Airplane crashes.
the challenge so the idea was, rather than building a fixed walkway to get to the terminals, that you could zip through in these lounges, right? And they would move around. So instead of you as an individual moving, they move groups of people, and it seems very efficient. And I think at first it probably was, right? But as it got more and more crowded, I think it became harder and harder for them to be efficient. And I find myself every time I'm there, I'm like, can I just walk faster?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I kind of like them. Like, the experience is sort of fun, but it just feels like you want to be on your own, on your own time, and I don't know. It feels like they go too slow when you're trying to get to your terminal, and it's,
I mean, that kind of brings us to full circle to the airport as destination versus the airport as a thing to get you through. So like one example of this, which is kind of neat, is, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is the Portland carpet.
Oh, that's
now
beautiful.
the original Portland carpet is the one on this side, and then this is the newer version now. And people love this carpet. Like, they'll take pictures of this carpet. It's very cool looking because it's kind of an abstracted airport-y design. I don't know how to,
It feels like flight.
It does. And it's really kind of neat, and it's both like old and new at the same time. I don't know. There's something really cool about this floor, and it's it's still carpet. I prefer terrazzo, but I'll take carpet. It's quieter for one. So the original carpet design, the Portland airport, was designed like, I want to say in the like late 80s, early 90s, and was all about leaning into the Northwest identity of Portland, right? And being like super Northwesty. So it's really, when you look at that carpet, it looks like, to me, it looks like a Patagonia sweatshirt. It's got that like very crunchy Western kind of look to it. But anyway, the Portland airport was just redesigned to make it even more Northwest. Do you want to describe it? It's like, it's not subtle.
So I haven't been there in years, so this is kind of exciting. So it has this, looks like a wooden slat ceiling with these skylights that are just kind of round holes, and then these columns that, rather than being straight up and down and kind of rigid columns, they V out, so they look like big trees. So everything around you kind of makes you feel like you're in a forest. And then just to reinforce that, they have kind of like malls. They have these little like planters that have real trees in them. And so it feels like it's celebrating the outdoors while you're inside doing something that's not very environmentally sound.
Yeah, flight is still not the greenest thing ever. I do think that these days, again, that the airports are trying to do two things at once, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, they're trying to move you through as quickly as possible, get you through to where you're going, destination, all that. But at the same time, they're trying to get you to spend your money and to have a memorable location. And actually, another architect that we've talked about a little bit, maybe not in this podcast yet, but unfortunately she passed away a couple of years ago. But Zaha Hadid created a bunch of this very, again, organic-looking architecture. This is her design for Dajing Airport, which is in China. Now, I've never been to China, so this is just from images that I've seen. But it is an ultra-practical airport on one hand, because basically think of it as a starfish. And in fact, I think they call it the starfish, right? So there's a loop that brings a road on one side so that all your, arrivals and departures of cars comes on one side. And then there's the various arms of the starfish. And on the spine of each of those arms, there's a huge skylight. And then there's also these kind of like Oculus windows too, here and there on the surface. Now, what's really cool about this airport is that apparently you can get from the center of the building to the end of a concourse in less than 8 minutes on foot.
Oh my gosh.
Which is incredible because this airport moves a ton of people.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is ultra practical, and you don't need a train. You don't need any of that stuff because it's set up to do this. And on the inside, it is outrageously gorgeous. I mean, It is just this huge abstract design. So this is one of those Oculus windows.
Yeah.
Which, comes down. And again, it's a very organic, it's glass, it's steel, it's concrete, all that other stuff. But now Zaha Hadid did have access to computers. There's a lot of computer aided design here. And so it creates this gorgeous abstract shape. The airport, though, that really takes the cake, which, I mean, again, like, do I care that an airport is like fall down gorgeous? I don't know. But this one, the Changi Airport, I'm not sure. It's in Singapore. It has the tallest indoor waterfall of, I think, any building in the world. It's a rainforest in there. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like a gorgeous theme park in the middle of this airport, and people, rave about it. I don't know, like, is that what an airport is for? And like, this is where maybe I'm being way too old-fashioned, way too, focused on the travel part of it. But for me, I want my airport to look like an airport, right? I want to be like, okay, this is an airport. This is the way out. This is the signage. This is how I'm getting from point A to point B. I don't want a rainforest in the middle of the airport personally, but maybe that's just because I'm old and grumpy. I don't know.
So, I feel like I'm of two minds, especially because of the way that we do security now, right? And so I guess the question is, as a destination, is it before or after? Can you go as a non-ticketed person, or do you have to pass through security in order to kind of get to this spectacular space? And I mean, that makes me think of DC, the national airport. So as we talked about, like the newest terminal there is from 1997, and it has this sort of long hallway with this. I read about it, and they say it's supposed to be like La Brouste's 1968 reading room at the Bibliothèque Nationale. I don't know. I think it feels...
At Saint-Geneviève? Okay. I guess I kind of see it because of the arches. No, I see it. Okay. It very abstracted and very like late 80s, early 90s,
right.
But sure. Okay.
I mean, so here's how I feel about it, though. It feels to me like a cathedral to an ode to travel, right? It does feel like a sacred space because it's the series of spaces with these kind of low Roman domes on top of them. And it has exposed steel columns and then these wonderful trusses that cross, right? And that make these kind of spectacular spaces. And that's all before you go through security. And that was intentional, right? They did that because they thought that it would be a destination, that you would wait for people there, and then there's more food and everything else after you go through security, but not as much. And I feel like that terminal really kind of it spans that era of what do you do with an airport? Is it just a place that you kind of pass through and perfunctory, like make sure there's enough coffee shops and bathrooms and get to your destination? Or is it a space that people meet one another, and can kind of wait around and have an experience, not just shop, but
right.
Be in the space. And I think with the changes in security, that's less of interest, right? Like now with the fears about airports and travel and the busyness and everything else, it's not really a space that we go to hang out. So to me, I love this idea of this indoor waterfall and this spectacular kind of space that looks like a botanic garden. But I don't know that now with the way we think about travel, that would be a space I would want to go and spend time.
I just also feel like, to me, like that's a space where I would be scared of losing my kids. I'd be scared of it looks like it's loud. It looks like it's just very visually busy. It's beautiful. I'm not going to pretend it's not beautiful. It is beautiful. But for me, that beauty is not related to air travel. It is beauty that is shoehorned in a sense. It has nothing to do with air travel. And I like the idea that one of the things I really like about Charles de Gaulle Terminal 1, it's one of the things I really like about the TWA terminal, about the LA building, about Dulles, is they're all about flight. They're all about that sense of wonder. And if it's something else, then okay, but I can go to a museum once I'm at my destination and I've changed my clothes.
I agree with you there. And I definitely see your point, but I feel like we just shifted. We shifted from an era when we celebrated the process of travel with all of those, the TWAs and everything else, and Charles de Gaulle Airport. But here it's about the destination, right? Because as soon as you get off in this airport, you know where you are. You don't think you're in New York. You don't think you're in Chicago. You don't think you're in New Zealand, right? You know where you are because it's specific to the place in a way that nothing else is. And so I feel like I like celebrating the process, but I don't mind celebrating the locality.
So what you're saying is we really need to find the budget to go to this airport to see how we feel about it in person.
Yes. All right, I'm in.
Let's do it.
Road trip.
I don't think you can get to Singapore that way.
No, that's true. But it doesn't sound as fun to say air trip.
It really doesn't. Well, thank you so much, Rae. And dear listeners, if you have fun airport stories or not too harrowing airport stories you'd like to share, we would love to hear them. So please drop us a line at verdigrispodcast.org.
Or send us a message in social media. We would love to hear from you. And thank you all so much for listening.
And thanks, Rae.
Thanks, Andi.